Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are tackling something that has literally intimidated readers for hundreds of years. St. Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologica. Now, I know what you're thinking. You hear that title and you probably picture this impenetrable, dusty medieval monolith meant only for absolute scholars, right? Well, what if I told you it's actually a brilliantly designed, incredibly accessible architectural masterpiece? Seriously, today we're going to unlock it together. We're going to look at exactly how it's built, and more importantly, how you can navigate it without getting completely lost.
Okay, let's dive right into our agenda. We'll kick things off by demystifying the masterpiece, then look at the three main parts. After that, we're cracking the citation code, breaking down treatises, questions, and articles, exploring the anatomy of an article, and finally, I'm going to hand you the master reading key.
Let's jump right into Section 1, Demystifying the Masterpiece. So here's the question for you. How do you actually navigate a masterpiece? Because let's be honest, when it comes to the Summa, it's the sheer size of the thing that absolutely overwhelms a beginning reader. It's huge. There's so many moving parts and sections that, without a map, you're definitely going to get lost in the hallways. We've really got to shift our perspective right out of the gate and view this text as a deliberate, highly intentional structure where there is absolutely zero wasted space.
And actually, the source text for our explainer gives us this absolutely perfect anchor point. It says the ST is a single book. It is also a meticulously envisioned, carefully constructed, and precisely executed book. I just love how that's put. Every single detail, every objection, every reply serves Aquinas' ultimate goal as a teacher. He wanted to give his students a holistic overview of Catholic truth, and he constructed this thing down to the very last nail to achieve exactly that.
Moving right along to Section 2, the three main parts. So we're going to start our macro to micro zoom right now. I want you to imagine we're standing outside this massive, magnificent cathedral, and we're taking in its three huge wings. At the absolute top level, you've got the prima pars, or the first part, then the secunda pars, the second part, and finally the tertia pars, the third part. But notice this really cool architectural quirk. The secunda pars, that middle wing, is so huge that it's actually split into two subparts. The prima secundae, which is the first of the second, and the secunda secundae, the second of the second. Kinda neat, right? But wait, what happens when the lead architect passes away before the building is actually finished? Well, fun fact for you, Aquinas actually died before he could finish that third part, the tertia pars. So, because he left it incomplete, his really devoted disciples stepped in to help. They cobbled together what scholars call the supplementum. To do this, they pulled from his much earlier youthful writings, specifically his commentary on the sentences of Peter Lombard. Now, it is totally useful, but it's just good to know that it's generally not considered the definitive expression of Aquinas' mature thought.
All right, Section 3, Cracking the Citation Code.
I want to shift gears here for a second because we are about to decode those crazy mathematical-looking abbreviations that scholars are always using. Once you know this, you're going to feel incredibly empowered navigating theology. Think of this as your secret decoder ring. The main parts of the Summa are just Roman numerals: I, I-I, double I, and triple I. Simple enough. Then we drill down. A lowercase q stands for question, and an article stands for article. Inside the article itself, OBJ is short for objection, and SC stands for sed contra, which is Latin for on the contrary. Just keep this key in the back of your mind. Now, what's really interesting is how incredibly simple this becomes when you actually use the cipher. Let's say you're reading a book and you stumble across this citation, STIII Q.5 A.2 OBJ3. I mean, it literally looks like an algebra equation, right? But let's translate it out loud together. ST is Summa Theologica. III is the prima secundae pars, the first part of the second part. Lower Q5 is question 5, lowercase a2 is article 2, and obj3 is objection 3. See? Suddenly it's not some crazy math problem at all, it's just a highly specific street address right inside the book. Which brings us to Section 4, Treatises, Questions, and Articles.
Let's move along and see how this actually builds. We've looked at the outside wings, we've got our map, and now we are walking straight inside the structure to see how these massive parts are systematically divided up.
Inside each main part of the Summa, we start with treatises. Think of these as broad theological categories, like, for example, the treatise on the one God. Then, each treatise is broken down into questions. These tackle specific topics within that broader category, like the perfection of God. And finally, we go one step deeper into the articles. Articles zoom in on highly precise elements and questions related to that topic, something like whether God is perfect universally. It's just this brilliantly logical progression from a super broad idea down to the incredibly precise details.
Oh, and here's a fantastic, highly practical pro tip right from our source material. If you want to get a quick feel for what Aquinas is actually arguing, check out the early and the concluding articles of a given question first. Basically, as a general rule, Aquinas is super helpful and summarizes his overarching arguments right there at the bookends of each question. It's an amazing way to grasp the whole landscape before you go diving deep into the weeds.
All right, Section 5, Anatomy of an Article.
So what exactly happens when we do dive into the weeds? We are zooming all the way down into the smallest room of our cathedral here to look at the exact furniture Aquinas places in every single article. Seriously, every article follows these exact 4 steps sequentially. First up, the objections. These are arguments for positions that Aquinas does not agree with. Second comes the sed contra, or on the contrary, where he drops a quick citation or reason for the conclusion he actually endorses. Third is the response. A lot of times scholars call this the corpus or the body of the article. This is the main event, where he lays out his series of arguments supporting his own position. And finally, step 4, the replies to the objections. This is where he circles back and systematically dismantles or corrects those initial opposing arguments, one by one.
Now, it's actually a super common habit for people to just skip those initial objections entirely and fast forward straight to the response. I mean, we just want the answer, right? But here's the thing. While that's not necessarily bad, it completely misses the true genius of the design. The intended reader, the one Aquinas was actually writing this for, reads the article as one integral whole, from the very first objection all the way down to the final reply. Every single element in there has a deep pedagogical purpose. Basically, if you skip the objections, you are missing half the conversation.
Finally, Section 6, the master reading key.
Okay, so we know the structure, we've cracked the codes, and we know the anatomy of the rooms. Now it's time for the ultimate interpretive tool for navigating this beast of a book. The prologues. Before the parts, the treatises, and the questions, Aquinas drops these short little introductions. And let me tell you, these are absolutely crucial. They explain the logic, the order, and the unity of how all these topics fit into the Summa as a whole. They explain exactly why a certain doctrine is being discussed in that specific place. The deliberate placement and the order of these treatises is literally just as important as the theology itself.
So the crucial point here is that you really need to think of the Summa Theologica like a giant snowball. Each section totally presupposes and builds right on top of the previous sections. You can't just parachute in at the very end and expect to have all the context. Because the text acts like this rolling, growing snowball, reading those foundational early articles, and especially those prologues we just talked about, is absolutely critical to gathering the right principles before you move forward.
As we wrap up our explainer today, I really want to leave you with this somewhat provocative thought. You don't actually have to read the Summa Theologica all the way through to benefit from it. There is a ton of value in just popping in to visit specific rooms of this cathedral. But will you read it entirely? Will you actually follow the architect's map from the very beginning to the very end to receive its wisdom and absolute fullness? Well, the door is unlocked and the map is right there in your hands. The rest is completely up to you.